Hello and welcome back. I wanted to take you through very briefly the process of creating a set of financial statements. And what I've done here is I've set up Google Sheets with a adjusted trial balance on the left, and then I've kind of pre-formatted the statements, the profit and loss, the statement of retained earnings, and the balance sheet. And the trial balance is going to be a result of whatever transactions we have entered into our general journal and then have been posted to the ledger. And then after that, there's probably been some adjustments made, and a new trial balance has been created by just pulling in all of the general ledger account balances. And so a trial balance, which I have listed or shown here on the left, always begins with assets, which in this case goes cash, accounts receivable, prepaid insurance, supplies, and equipment. And then it transitions to liabilities, and we only have one, accounts payable. And then equities, common stock and dividends in this case. And then revenue, delivery fees. And then the expenses, in which case we have three, the wage expense, rent expense, and telephone expense. But a trial balance should always be organized in that order, where we go from assets to liabilities to equities to revenues and expenses. So we should traditionally see and find that order. So the first thing that we need to do when we're creating financial statements is create the profit and loss, or the income statement, or the statement of operations, which are three names for the same thing. You'll find it referred to as the income statement in many accounting texts, but you'll find a lot of small business professionals using the term P&L, just to be more brief. And the trick with the profit and loss is that it includes revenues and expenses to get to net income. So what I've done here is I've just copied and pasted, literally, the items that we needed. So here's the revenue, and we only have one revenue, so I'm not going to do a subtotal. And then I'm more of a fan of a single column statement, so I'm going to list the expenses. I'll go ahead and add in here real quick a total for the expenses. We'll use the sum function here to just add those up for us. And then from that, we can get the net income, which is going to be hopefully spelled correctly, which is going to be the total revenue minus the total expenses. So the trick here is really just to recognize what are the revenues, what are the expenses, and then to get some format going so that you have have it looking relatively decent. But the key is that you arrive at net income when you're all done. That's what the profit and loss is supposed to do, is tell us the net income for the period. So because I have a corporation here, I need to do the statement of retained earnings, and we can see in this adjusted trial balance there is no beginning retained earnings. So I'm going to operate from the assumption that this is a brand new company. So I'm going to start with beginning retained earnings of 0, and then I'm going to add the net income, which in this case is the $12.50, and then I'm going to subtract the dividends, which in this case, over looking at the adjusted trial balance, is $1.50. Now I typed those in. You could just as easily have linked to those cells, which if you're going to repeat this process often, then you probably would want to do that. I'm going to unbold that there. Put in a line, and then now let's do the calculation. So it's going to be equal to this plus the net income minus the dividends to get us to the ending retained earnings. So it kind of looks odd here that that's bold, so we'll fix that. I don't know, maybe since all those headings were bold, these ones should be headings, and by all those I mean the headings that were in the P&L. One of the things we just look for is consistency in a lot of cases, so So there we go. So the way I've set up my spreadsheet here with the profit and loss, the retained earnings, and the balance sheet flowing from left to right is pretty important because I must do the statements in this order. You could see that I just pulled over the net income onto the statement of retained earnings. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had not already calculated the net income. And we're going to need the ending retained earnings, which I better label here. To go on our balance sheet. So there's a flow of numbers across the statements that helps to make it all sort of balance. So on the balance sheet, we're going to need the assets, the liabilities, and the equity. So I'm literally just going to pick them up or copy them and drop them in here. Now I'm going to break things apart a little bit here. I'm going to do my statement in a single column. So there is all the assets. So I'm going to put in a total assets heading here. Sum all of the assets, basically just add them all up, and so there's what I get. I have an accounts payable, then I have a common stock, and so I'm going to add in the ending retained earnings, which is the 1100 that we calculated on the previous sheet. So I'm just going to do the total liabilities and equity. I guess I'm going to which is going to equal the liabilities plus the two equity accounts for 4,900. And you can see that our balance sheet balance is at 4,900, which is good. I'm going to clean it up a little bit now. It seems like that if we've got that formatting there, we need this formatting here, we need the numbers to be of similar size. I'm going to put in a border line to show that we've done a calculation. And it looks relatively decent. I'm going to actually turn the total number. One of the things, and I'm going to do it across the spectrum here. One of the things that I haven't found in Google Sheets, I'm not extremely familiar with it, but it doesn't seem to, in its border functions, do the line with the double underline, which is traditionally what we do in accounting to show that we've arrived at kind of our final or concluding number. And so in this case, I'm gonna just use bold. So again, to step through this very, one more time, the profit and loss, revenue minus expenses to get to net income. And this number right here becomes just critical because it shows up again over here as net income. So the statement of retained earnings, the beginning retained earnings plus net income less dividends to get to the ending retained earnings. And then the ending retained earnings, we'll use our duck colors here, is important because it shows up on the balance sheet. And so the balance sheet's going to show us assets, which we have at the top there, total assets, and then liabilities and equity. We have the common stock and the ending retained earnings, and then we have the total of the liabilities and the equities. Now, I've been a little bit lackadaisical here. I probably should have a heading for the assets to go at the top, and then all the assets listed, and then the total assets. I could also have a heading for the liabilities, along with possibly a total for the liabilities. I probably would not total the liabilities if I only had accounts payable, but if I had accounts payable, bonds payable, notes payable, a whole variety of liabilities, then I might create a category and then total liabilities, and then I could have an equity heading and then the total equity, and then eventually I could have the total liabilities and equity. I've abbreviated some of the headings and subtotals because I have so few accounts in this particular situation. But the important part with the balance sheet is to show that we are still in balance, that the total assets is still equal to the total liabilities and equities. So again, it's critical that we do these statements in order. We must kind of understand the mathematical relationships between the statements. But once we have that, the only other real challenge is just recognizing what goes on each statement, which accounts go where, and then the statements come together pretty nicely for us. So I hope you've found this helpful. Good luck with your continuing studies, and we'll see you in one of the next videos, or you'll at least see our spreadsheets and our work. So take care.